So think about today, rents are higher than they were back then when money was basically free. So as far as people thinking to buy right now, with interest rates being low, prices being down, and rents being extremely high, now's a very good time to buy residential real estate. So anyways, there's the official ad. Yes?
So where are the other opportunities, I guess, from your perspective, from either residential or commercial in the greater Bay Area? So when I deal with I do personal finance for families, but if people have extra cash and maybe they already have a home, so where do you think the opportunity is? Is it buying a second home? Is it buying condos? Is it buying distressed property? What's kind of the trend moving forward for the next 5 to 10 years?
I would say if you're talking about buying locally, I would say that condos are the best opportunity right now because they still haven't fully recovered. So here that would be the best opportunity. And then I guess it's a case-by-case situation. If someone is investing for asset growth, then there's a lot of opportunities around here. But if you're looking at making a property cash flow, it's really going to depend upon how much money you can put down. It takes a huge down payment on residential real estate right now to make it cash flow. So it really depends on the situation.
On the commercial side, I really don't know. I mean, even though there's rent growth, the market has changed so much, and I think Larry alluded to this a little bit in being kind of a lone horseman as a family-owned shopping center. On the commercial side, other than very small, the small downtown buildings, everything in our market today is institutionally owned.
Right.
And I've never figured out how anybody can compete with them because their cost of capital is so low. Apartments, I know people buy apartments in multifamily. Those, the cap rates or the return on those deals is actually lower than the cost of debt. So you're borrowing money at 6% and getting a 4% return. So you're with 50% leverage, your net yield's 2%. I'm not gonna. If it's my money, I'm not taking that risk for 4% return. I guess if somebody is just purely, pure cash buyer, and they don't mind the management of apartment type assets. I know people are keeping them full today, but it's a lot of brain damage for 4%. Apple stock's up 25% in the last month. I'd rather own that.
Yes.
Chris, it's not really a question, it's an observation. I'm sitting here listening to some of what you're saying and sort of flashing back to the enrollment demographic kind of growth reports that we get at the school district.
Right.
And we're seeing enrollment growth in San Mateo Foster City across all levels of housing, but more, a little bit stronger on attached housing of all sorts. So whether it's condos or townhouses or apartments, like multifamily places. So younger families buying or moving in.
Yeah, I would say that that's not one of the things I researched here, but just as a rule of thumb, people coming through my open houses and so forth, probably 25 to 45 is mainly what's buying.
It might be interesting to see that report. I'll have to.
Yeah, definitely would like to.
I mean, one thing I would say is that the one thing that is getting built today is apartments. I mean, Saris Regis is building a project right at Foster City Boulevard. I think it's a couple of hundred units. They're getting ready to kick off a project at the old Shen site in San Mateo. The Kmart site is, they're currently shopping for a joint venture partner to build 600 units of apartments at that site.
Right.
So apartments are something, because of the rents that Chris talked about, that there's a heavy investment appetite for, and people are starting to build them.
Yeah.
I have a question about short sales. I've got 2 kids that are late 20s, 30s, and one bought a home and had kind of a not such a pleasant experience on a short sale. why are everybody I talk to, short sales take a really long time, you don't know what's happening, you're 30, 60 days in, and then you think you're the top bidder or the whatever, and then the whole rules change. What is with short sales? Is foreclosure much easier to, as a buyer, to negotiate through?
Yes, so foreclosure, so let's just create a scenario. Let's say you came to me and said, Chris, I want to buy a property, I want to buy a condo. And we've got a bunch of short sales to look at. There are a lot more short sales on the market right now than there are foreclosures. If you say, you know, Chris, which one of these should we really look at? I'm going to say, depends on your timeline. You can probably get a better deal on a short sale because they take so long, but do you have the stomach to hold in there? The foreclosure, it's almost like a regular transaction. You have an asset manager that it might take them a week to respond. I've got one right now that I haven't heard if we got it because there were multiple offers on it. Maximum 5-day response time on this foreclosure. Whereas I've also got an offer on a short sale, it's been 2 months and we haven't really heard anything. So why is the short sale so much difficult? The answer to this question depends upon when you're asking. If you asked it early last year, I would say that they're still so screwed up that the lenders, as far as working through the process of this thing. Now they're a lot more streamlined, but you have to consider that there may be 2 lenders, and sometimes there's 3 lenders involved. So I may be able to negotiate with Ed, who's the first lender, to get this thing, to accept some short payoff. But now Ed's got to go to Dave, and then Dave's the second lender, and Dave's like, you know what, screw you, Ed, I'm not taking $5,000. We want 10 on this thing, or we'll hold it up. Your exposure is higher than mine. We'll let you lose out on this thing and let it go into foreclosure. So you got disputes going on like that. Some of the backdoor things that you might not be aware of is when some of these lenders took over other lenders, there was a government guarantee that basically said, if you take over this smaller bank, that we as a federal government will guarantee your losses on the mortgages you take over for this other bank. So for that primary lender in the short sale, it may be better for them to foreclose, let the government pay out on that, than to negotiate a short sale. I mean, on the grand scheme of things, it's better to do the short sale for the whole economy, but there's all these things that you're just not aware of. You might never find out about why they rejected. I mean, I had a short sale last year, I think it was last year, early last year, where by the time they got through the foreclosure process and resold that property, the bank lost at least $150,000. I had an offer that I presented and they rejected it, and then later it sold for $150,000 less. That doesn't even say how much that loan servicer charged the lender for foreclosing on the property, and the real estate commissions and all that stuff involved. So they might have lost $200,000 on it. So you're just like, why would you do that? Yes.
I'm sorry, I don't know. A short sale is just when you have more than one lender involved?
Well, so a short sale, imagine I own a property here, and I owe $1 million on that property. Between, let's say I've got a first and I've got a second. I owe $1 million on it. Well, the property is only worth $600,000. Well, if I sell that property, it's going to be a short payoff. So now I can't just sell the property on my own because there's not going to be enough money to pay out on that. So I have to hire a real estate agent who then gathers all my financials, presents it to Ed as the first lender, Dave as the second lender, and they basically approve me paying back less than I really owe. So that's a short sale. Yes.
Chris, are you noticing anecdotally a trend of people not living in the communities that they work in? Because like when I worked in DC, nobody lived in DC. We all lived in Northern Virginia, Annandale, just because of the economic impact of that. I'm just curious.
So yeah, I think that there. I can't say this from people coming into my open houses, because someone's coming into my open house is at least trying to live here. But there are a lot of people living in the East Bay that work here, and that's something I'm sure Linda could probably speak to. But yeah, there's a lot of people that work here that don't live in this area.
Actually, sustainable. Part of your book, part of your study.
Yes, sir. Indicators report.
Indicators report has that information in it.
And we kind of refer to it as the jobs housing imbalance. There's a lot of people who work here that live outside of the county, and there's also a lot of people who live in the county and work outside of it. So work in San Francisco or Silicon Valley but live here, vice versa.
So, and actually, I don't know if you necessarily asked this question, but what I'm seeing a lot of right now is two-income households. One might work in San Francisco, one might work in the East Bay or in Silicon Valley, or I guess this is Silicon Valley now, isn't it? Anyways, who might work in the South Bay that choose to live here because it's centrally located for everybody. So I see a lot of that now, people coming in and saying, we're moving from San Francisco because my husband works there and the wife works down there, we want to be central.
What are some of the variables that go into the amount of time between when you miss a house payment and you're foreclosed on? I guess, specifically, why does it take 400 more days, like in Washington, D.C., for the foreclosure to be enacted versus here?
That's probably another one that nobody really knows everything. There are certain times where a bank doesn't want to report, they don't want to start the foreclosure process, and someone who's in banking would probably have to explain this a little bit better than me, but from what I've heard, once they begin that foreclosure process, they have to report that as a non-performing asset. And when they report it as a non-performing asset, they have to set aside a certain amount of additional money to meet their whatever their loan, whatever asset requirements or whatever are. So sometimes they don't want to report that. I've seen properties go 3, 4, 5 years without anybody making a mortgage payment.
So as an expert in the field, the last few days there's been some legislation that's changed, and I haven't had a chance to read up on it. I'm going to do my studying this weekend. But I figured maybe you could summarize it. What's going on? Are we bailing out banks? You know, this billion-dollar deal that the government is now going to be helping, or are we helping the people who are not paying their mortgages for 2 years?
I know that what they're trying to do, if you're talking about this thing that was just in the paper today.
Right.
I think the government is trying, well, number one, they're punishing the people, the lenders, for the robo-signing scandal. Okay? So that's number one. It was a big settlement because of that. And I think a lot of that money is going back into trying to help people who can't pay their mortgage to modify. On a grand scale, it makes sense to modify those mortgages because we want to keep those people in their houses. So this is completely a non-political statement, but for the good of the country, we should keep them in their houses because if we can reduce their mortgage principal, reduce their payment, then it's better than going through the whole foreclosure process. That's what they're trying to do, is force these lenders to modify their mortgages. I'm not defending this robo-signing scandal, but I don't think they've proven that there's anybody there who actually was still making their mortgage payment they got foreclosed on. So as much as you hear that that they didn't follow procedure when they foreclosed, you look at these people and some of these weren't making mortgage payments for 2 years. So you know, you look at most of us and say, if we missed a mortgage payment for 2 years, we're going to get foreclosed on, and if I don't make my mortgage payment, I kind of deserve that, you know. So I mean, there's hardship issues and so forth, but the media hypes this a little bit too, in my opinion.